On all of this, senior advisor for the Trump 2020 campaign, Katrina Pierson, and former Obama campaign foreign policy advisor, David Tafuri, correct? Thank you both so much for coming on tonight. Katrina, I want to start with you and your reaction to Attorney General Jeff Sessions kind of punting this off to a U.S. attorney in Utah, saying this guy is removed from the Justice Department, maybe because he's in a faraway state. What is your reaction to that?
Well, you know, Katie, I have to sort of echo Congressman DeSantis in saying that, yeah, it makes sense to find somebody outside of D.C. to investigate. But my issue really about the standard here. Where was that standard when the special counsel was appointed to go after the president and his family? This is a complete and absurd atrocity. Jeff Sessions should have appointed a special counsel to investigate this because we've already seen what has happened under the Obama administration. Jeff Sessions himself has reconciled with American citizens who were targeted by Obama's IRS. What exactly is he trying to confirm? Is he just waiting on some sort of, maybe, I don't know, a confession? It just doesn't make any sense. And this is going to take a lot more time. And meanwhile, Robert Mueller is running all over the place. They won't even narrow his scope here. And so here we are today, knowing that neither you or I or any of the viewers of tonight's program could ever get away with deleting 30,000 emails after receiving a subpoena and still be walking around.
David, my question for you, well, you, David, agree that this should be investigated for another reason. However, doesn't the FBI have a credibility problem, not just with Republicans, but with the country as a whole? And wouldn't a special prosecutor for this case kind of clean some of that up?
Well, what I think your audience would want is for us to follow the rule of law, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, to make sure that these investigations go forward properly and that there are impartial decision makers who are in charge of these investigations. Now, Katrina is massively confused about the standard. The standard for special counsel is if there's a conflict of interest or if there are extraordinary circumstances. Neither of those are in place here. So Sessions made the right choice.
But were they in place for the other special counsel with Mueller? That's the question. Is there a double standard here? It sure looks like it.
And that's a great question, because what happened with Mueller is very different. The reason we have a special counsel Mueller is because Trump fired Comey. When he fired Comey, that showed there was a conflict of interest. In fact, Trump said a week later on NBC he fired Comey because of the Russia.
David, do you believe that Hillary wouldn't have actually fired James Comey?
Let me finish. The reason that we know that there was a conflict of interest is because Trump went on NBC and he said, I fired Comey because of the Russia investigation. That's a true conflict of interest. That's why we ended up with a special counsel. In the case of this investigation that Sessions decided not to have a special counsel, there's no such concern. In fact, there's a U.S. attorney in Utah who's going to follow the rules, follow the law, and investigate this. He doesn't have a conflict of interest. That's why these two issues are distinct.
Well, Katrina, he said you were confused. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Well, of course, Katie. I mean, the problem is about evidence. The standard is about evidence from General Sessions' mouth himself. There is zero evidence of Russia collusion. However, when you take Loretta Lynch sitting on the tarmac with Bill Clinton, you have hundreds of Americans, law-abiding citizens, that have been spied on through unmasking by the Obama administration, not to mention Uranium One, the Clinton Foundation's accounts receivable, and these new texts that show between Strzok and Page, quote, the White House is leading on this. Really? Evidence. The House Intelligence Committee has already uncovered FISA abuse, of which Rod Rosenstein's signature is on that form. There is your conflict with appointing this Mueller investigation. It is a farce and a witch hunt, exactly like the president has stated.
Well, and I think that everyday Americans outside of the D.C. Beltway are concerned about this happening to them and the abuse at the FBI and the FISA court. It's not just about high-profile politicians running for president. It's about all Americans. But I want to switch gears real quickly to President Trump's infrastructure speech last week. Katrina, you're working on his 2020 campaign. He talked in front of 400 union members in Ohio. Should that concern Democrats when they're trying to get back those districts and counties that President Trump turned from blue to red?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we'll let the Democrats still run on taking away their American and this fake Russia collusion. Meanwhile, the president's making America great again. This is an infrastructure package that will be bipartisan. It is focused on putting America's first and rebuilding our own communities and expanding financing for a lot of these projects with public-private partnerships in place that I would hope would make states more accountable for where their money is going so they can better suit their citizens as well. So I think it's going to be really exciting over the summer as this plays out.
David, infrastructure is usually a Democratic issue. Is this something that Trump's going to be able to work with Democrats on, or are they going to take it and run even in an election year?
Well, it should be a bipartisan issue. I'm from Ohio. We're really glad that the president went to Ohio. We always want to highlight our state. The president gave a speech there. He was supposed to talk about infrastructure, but he pretty much just talked about himself, his favorite subject. So for the people who showed up for this speech, the pro-Trump people, they were probably happy to hear that speech. But if you were looking for details about the infrastructure program and how it's going to be implemented, they were not in that speech. I would love to hear those, and I'd like to see Democrats and Republicans support it.
Well, you might want to go back through because he did give 4 distinct points on how he wants to implement it. But for another time, Katrina Pierson, David Tafuri, thank you so much for being here.
Happy Easter.
Thank you.
Thank you.